Councillor Young. Whakatakatahau ki te uru, whakatakatahau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora. Afternoon, councillors online. Foon and O'Neill, we can see you and your bright cheery faces. It's good to have you with us. The first thing is the apologies. We have apologies from Mayor Foster and Deputy Mayor Free. I will move that the apologies are accepted. Is there a seconder? Councillor Matthews seems very enthusiastic about seconding that. If you are in favour of accepting those apologies, please press 1. If you are not, press 2. Thanks, everybody. That's carried. I now call on any members to declare any conflicts of interest that they may have in relation to any item on the agenda.
Yes.
Councillor Day.
I have a conflict, which is ghost diving Aotearoa. So I will not participate in that part of the debate, so if we can take that separately, that would be good. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Any other conflicts of interest? Councillor Young.
No,
I like the arts. That's not one.
It's just that I know so many conflict and I say
Well, it is Wellington. It's really up to you whether you feel that that...
I don't have well, not yet.
This meeting's all of a sudden got awkward. I think you can determine whether or not that's a conflict. I think we should be okay. All right, I will move that moving quickly on to the confirmation of the minutes, I will move that we approve the minutes of the previous grants meeting held on the 24th of May 2022. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Day. I'll now put the motion. Please vote 1 if you're in favour and 2 if you're against. We'll vote online. Thanks everyone, that's carried. There are no items not on the agenda, although this is the last meeting of the Grants Committee, and I'll say a bit more about that in the end. But there is also no request for public participation at this meeting. So we'll move on to the first paper, which is the Arts and Culture Fund. And I'd like to introduce and welcome Andy Lowe to the table. And Sasha. Thank you very much. Now people have had a chance to look at it. Are there any introductory remarks you'd like to make about the fund before we move on to any questions from councillors?
Tēnā tātou, he kui mai koroma, he rauranga tirama, he ngā mātāwaka, ngā paimaunga, ngā waio te motu, tēnā tātou, ko Andy Lowe tōku ingoa. Well, thank you so much for having us here today. Just to say that we're in a real transitional phase, bringing the application processes into alignment with the new Ahotini strategies. So this July grant, really the round offered a smaller funding pool of 50,000 for small scale projects and activities taking place before the end of 2022, and we really wanted to get that in there. On top of this, we offered 30,000 support for independent artists and 30,000 for professional performing artists. But we're really trying to open up different ways of doing things and working closely with Mataaho Aronui and iwi, emerging artists within all communities, including multicultural, deaf and disabled and rainbow communities. We have a huge amount of work to do for people to see themselves within council and within the funding application process, and even just to know that it's there. So we're out there doing that at the moment, and I just wanted to preface things with that. So, nō reira, ngā mihi nui ka koutou. Kia ora.
Thanks so much, Andy. Are there any questions for Andy and Sasha? Councillor Day?
Yeah, kia ora, thank you. It's interesting to read and see what's coming through. My question's around the Tawa Street Art project and just the comment around, I guess, future work to develop another application, how that will work and what the plan is. Kia ora.
Oh, kia ora, Councillor Day. We are, when they come to us, we will be talking to them about how to do that, and we've got some ideas in terms of working with mana whenua and Māori in that space, and just like to cover that off before they go forward with another one. So that's the plan.
Beautiful, that sounds good. Kia ora.
Thanks so much. If there aren't... Laurie, did you have a question? No? Okay.
Yes, sorry, Chair. Just combining the screen with the papers transitioning through. Yes, I do, if that's okay. Andy, I just wanted to understand about the umbrella organisations working with the independent artists, and how is this working amongst the community? Because it's great that we've got the system, but is it working for all in the system? For example, I understand that administratively that does impose on just how is it working together?
Kia ora, Councillor Foon. Great question. It is kind of, in a way, inaugural. These things are starting off. There's some organisations who've been doing it for a while, and what they can do for smaller independents is provide a base support system. When they go to CNZ or other big organisations for funding, they see that that organisation is umbrellaing that independent, and that gives them a lot more. They look on that pretty favourably. So there's lots of benefits to it, but we're just starting to get that word out there for other organisations too. Yeah.
One more question. Does it add responsibilities and ownership to the umbrella company? Are the umbrella companies concerned about their reputation, or how is that working across each other?
It does add responsibility, but often they'll definitely the only umbrella companies or independents that they are aligned to and that they know really well, and they feel really demonstrate their own values. So that it's kind of like a whanaungatanga thing. They really are working together to along similar value system. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Sasha, sorry.
And just part of that is that they can nominate a small percentage of admin costs, so it covers them.
Saw that.
Yeah.
Great. Well, great system. So I hope it serves everybody well.
Kia ora.
And Councillor Day.
Sorry, I'm now just reflecting on the answer about the working with mana whenua. Would there be any issue with giving a grant and then working with them on the flip side and saying, we would like this to be part of the project and we can work with you on that? Is there any problem around that?
Not at all.
Or would it affect the costing or anything? Like, what do you sort of...
it is based on a relationship, and that's what we think is the foundation. One of the values of ahotini, is based on really trusting relationships and also that ability with a trusting relationship to, for creativity to flourish, and it might go in any direction. Obviously, the amount of money involved, is the consideration, but, it is based on trust.
Yeah, because I'm wondering if it is something that council needs to put more support in than if we have community groups trying to go and do that, whether it would bog mana whenua down with more work, and it can sometimes slow that process down. So I wonder if we could look at a slightly different way of approaching it. That's really encouraging. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool, I don't think there's any more questions, so I'll hand over to Councillor Young to introduce the report.
Okay, well, I have a great pleasure in introducing this, and I'd just like to thank the officers, Andy and Saska, and Mark Farrer, and behind the scenes, Phil Ralton-Jacks, who's there for me when I have a computer crisis, which, was quite frequent. This is a really exciting group and a slightly different mix of arts organisations this time. And to my great pleasure, more classical music. And there are a couple of ones I'd just like to mention. One is the Queen's Closet Trust, which, if you look in the papers, has some of our leading arts music practitioners involved in it. People like Peter Walls, who was a professor of music at Vic, and Mark Tadai, who is the musical director of Orchestra Wellington. And then the Theatre View Trust, which because the papers do such a terrible job of reviewing the Theatre View Trust steps in, for those of you who like going to the theatre. And then finally, Zimbelstein, which is... I'll call it a pipe organ, but you're supposed to just call it an organ because the name came before you had electronic ones, and it's regarded as infra-dig to call it a pipe organ, but I just want to be clear what kind of organ they have. And Douglas Muse, of course, who's an outstanding musician, specialising in things like the harpsichord and clearly the organ. So we've got some real treats ahead, and I'd just like to thank the officers for all that work they've done to sort it all out, because it's a hell of a job. Thank you.
Well done.
Oh, I have great pleasure in moving the paper. Seconded by.
Thanks, Councillor Young. I'll second this, and I just want to briefly echo the comments of Councillor Young in thanking the staff and also reflecting on the wide variety of grants we've got in here. I think it's there's something for everyone in the money that's been allocated here, and I'm really pleased to see our hotini start to roll out. So thanks to everyone involved, and really pleased to see the wide range. Do we have any amendments?
Yeah, I'm a bit confused because I thought we were going to do it a little bit different, but it should work as long as I've got a seconder. Maybe? Can you second it? So, I would like to propose that we do fund the mural for the Tawa Residents Association. I think hearing what needs to happen with that, maybe that could happen as part of the process. I'm just aware that it's not the first time that we've had conversations with the community about trying to get a mural into the community. Obviously, we had the one that was done through the street upgrade process, but yeah, it would be really lovely to see some more murals going up around our city. Actually, just having spent the weekend in Christchurch, you really notice how many murals there are, and that we've lost a few through buildings coming down, so it would be nice to see a few more going up. So if someone would second me, I'd love to put that one through. Oh, thank you.
Lovely. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Matthews? No? Very good. All right. We'll just wait a second while we work
Sorry,
up
I'm doing that knowing that there is a little bit of wriggle room financially. So
yeah, no problem. We'll just work up the wording for it, and then we'll be right back. Hang on. Keep it on the screen. You happy with that, Councillor Day?
very, thank you.
Excellent. All right, does anyone else wish to speak to the amendment? Certainly.
So the question is just that if, the application didn't provide enough detail. I mean, do we have enough detail about it? I mean, isn't that, it wasn't so much that it was not a good idea, it's just they didn't have enough information.
Might ask Andy if he can help us there.
Yeah, kia ora. No, it doesn't have enough information, and we'd have to go back to them to kind of work with them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've got no problem with it in principle. It's just that we don't want to have a precedent of going off, you know, half, whatever the expression is. I'm not allowed to use it here.
Sure, so just checking based on the comments that Councillor Day made and the questions, and just now that there will be a bit more work. It won't just be that, you know, there will be a bit more work done with them and officers will be satisfied, and if you're not, you'll come back to the Grants Committee. Is that? Yeah,
Right.
cool.
Yep,
Okay,
cool.
Great, all right. I think it sounds like that's the case anyway. So,
And look,
yeah.
I feel, I mean, I could just do a right of reply now. I don't think, does anyone
Yeah,
else
go
want to
for it.
speak?
Go for it. Oh, Councillor Foon, did you want to speak to the amendment, or
No,
we'll just
to
we'll
the
just might deal
substantive.
with this and then come back to you, Councillor Day?
And yeah, I'd just say, look, I would be sure that the community would be happy to work on refining that. This is one of these tricky things where the community aren't experts necessarily in how to fulfil an application to be successful for this sort of thing, but I'm sure that, you know, the desire's there to do a good job and to have the outcome that means we have a beautiful mural in our community. So yeah, it'd be good. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I'll just ask you to vote on the amendment. Oh, it's right up there. It's the $10,000 to the Tawa Residents Association for the Tawa Street Art Project.
Subject to
Okay, subject. All right, if you're happy with that. Oh, lovely.
At this stage, there was no draft design submitted, so we couldn't really assess how it would look.
Cool. All right.
And I guess just in response to that, they probably don't have the ability to produce a draft design until they know that they're going to be. It's a chicken or egg situation, isn't it? So maybe we could see through this process, it might actually help inform future processes so that communities can come and engage with this. Kia ora.
Lovely. I see some of our colleagues have already voted. Those in the room, if you're in favour, press green, otherwise red. And that's passed. Thanks, everyone. Now I'll just go back to Councillor Foon for the substantive.
Kia ora. I just wanted to acknowledge the great projects that are coming through, particularly for our disabled community, Party Pigs and the dining table, working with New Zealand Sign, and yeah, just personally really excited about that. So I know there are more projects coming through from the community, working with our disabled community. So yeah, I'm sure our officers are, but really encourage that. Yeah, gives me great excitement. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Foon. All right, I'll ask people to vote on the amended substantive now. Do you need to write a reply, Councillor Young? I'm picking you don't. Everyone sit back. All good. Put it on Facebook. Lovely, that's carried. Thank you, everyone. Now we're moving on to the Natural Environment Fund. And I think Henk is here to talk to us. Hey. Welcome, Henk. Do you have any introductory comments you'd like to make? These councillors are very diligent. They've all read the report. But if you're welcome to make any introductory comments if you wish.
Kia ora koutou. My name is Henk from the Urban Ecology team and standing in for Daniela over the next year. We've had 9 applications from 8 applicants and partial applications approved or recommended for 7 of them, 2 of them not recommended. And happy to provide details on that. And the criteria of that is really to engage people in activating them for nature. So, so number 1, connecting people with nature, but also creating an activation opportunity. Cool.
Lovely, thanks, Henk. Councillor O'Neill, did you have a question?
Kia ora, thank you. Yes, I have 2 parts. The first one is, why have we just recommended a partial funding of Ghost Diving New Zealand? Just noting it's quite a significant jump between the requested amount.
Yes, thank you very much. For Ghost Diving, we looked at the best outcome with connecting people with nature. So providing that health and safety gear will get more people activated, and specifically focus on the beach cleanups and sharing the message on climate change and those kind of things within the community.
Cool. Is there any reason that we haven't funded them more than, $2,250?
Yes, so the remaining of that would be for the gas bottles and sort of the upkeep of the diving equipment and gear, and that wasn't in line with the beach cleanups.
Okay, cool. And then through the chair, I just have one other question. We are supporting Mountains to Sea Wellington Trust through this grant. Yep. And their program is in Wellington City schools. I'm just checking that sometimes we decline applications because they might overlap with, say, other things like Enviro schools. So I wanted to check with you, Henk, how Mountains to Sea Wellington Trust work alongside Enviro schools, or if they're covering different areas or education in schools, why they're supporting that way.
Yes, so thank you very much again. So from what I understand, Enviro Schools is very much terrestrial focused, whereas Mountains to Sea, it's based around the marine side. And because there's not a lot that WCC is doing around the marine component, this is a great way for us to engage school kids in that space. And again, do beach cleanups and actual activities on the coastline.
Thank you. That's all.
Awesome.
Thanks, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Day. Oh.
On some of the other ones, we also haven't given the full amount. How do we? Sometimes it's a bit hard to tell how we come at the amount we do, and I imagine it's different for each application. But I guess like the Brooklyn one, it is half of what they've asked for, and then the Marine Conservation Board, it's a very small amount. Does that mean that they're going to be able to do what they need to do?
Yes, so with regards to the weed funding, which is partial, that forms part of the larger operational spend on weeds. So it's an extension of that, and it also activates the communities in those areas. And with marine conservation, that was really giving them an opportunity to continue services on those Sundays and for the operational running of the bait house. But unfortunately, we weren't able to provide the full fund of $30,000.
And Councillor Foon.
Kilda, and this is more of a strategic question, but maybe after 3 years I should know the answer to this by now. But I think one of them is that the Natural Environment Fund feels very small for what we're trying to achieve. So is this something that in the next long-term plan, those of us that are around, would officers recommend that we look at increasing this fund? Or could we recommend to officers that we look at increasing this fund?
I guess so. I'm pretty new to speaking to this, but
it might sit with us.
That would be ideal. So just to put in perspective, we're only managing close to 20% of all the weeds that we should be managing out there. So the more funding is obviously always better for the environment.
Okay. Chair, I have a few more partai if you have patience.
Go for your life.
Just around that, I know that our officers, you do an amazing job of sweeping up, like the long gully bush and the Mount Cook mobilised. How do we, sustain the enthusiasm? Because I guess what happens, we lose sight of these types of groups and projects, and so it's just wondering how we manage dancing with those relationships and helping them to keep going.
Yes, thank you very much. With the Mount Cook mobilised, we'll actually bring them into the volunteer space. So that means our rangers have continual communication with them, and we can share resources with them, so we can continually support them as part of a larger program. And then with the Natural Heritage Trust, we work really closely with each other. We fund some of the work in the pest animal space, and the pest animal application, we didn't approve that because the amount of impact we would be getting out of that work was quite small, and I think that there's a lot more impact that we can get if we work collaboratively with them in that space.
That sounds good. So one more question too, just in terms of the ghost diving one, with that, I don't know if you can actually answer this, but because it combines with waste minimisation, is it possible we could recommend to them to also have a look at the Wasteman Fund?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, removing rubbish from the ocean is that would be fantastic. It just didn't feel like this was the fund to put that forward. But yes, definitely through Waste Minimisation Fund, or maybe Mark can add some more details on that.
Just through the chair, I mean, the Waste Minimisation Fund is focused on the waste hierarchy, so I think they have applied there in the past, and it's prioritised around stuff that's going into landfill. So we can certainly explore that, but I wouldn't say for sure whether that could be an option.
Okay. Maybe if we could just connect them up with Jen and have another go, because I think now that we're trying to limit what's going in the landfill, it may have added appeal. Kia ora, that's me. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I've got a question also about ghost diving. Just wanting to understand the rationale for the amount that you've proposed. Is it that the rest of the funding that they requested falls outside the criteria? is it, because I did have a look at their application, and that's not quite where I thought it landed. I thought it was a little bit more pragmatic than that, but was that the rationale?
So they provided a breakdown, and so we decided to fund specific items on that breakdown.
Yeah.
That's how we came to the
Cool. So I think you just mentioned before that some of them were dive, whatever those, like tanks or whatever.
Yeah, so, yeah.
So are they, if we did decide to fund them a bit more in the decision we're about to make, did they, are you saying that you just decided not to, as opposed to they fall out of the criteria of the fund?
Yeah, so, so we decided to fund all those aspects that can contribute to the beach cleanups and engaging people for the environment. But that's the only reason why we didn't support the other.
Because they need the tanks to get into the, I assume, I mean, I don't know much about diving, but to get into the rubbish, right? Is that how it works? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Okay, cool. Yep. No, that's helpful. So if we could, there is discretion. If we did apply more funding to them, it wouldn't be that they would then be falling foul of the criteria.
No.
No. Helpful. Cool. Yes.
We are recommending the full amount available for the whole year in this fund in this round as well.
Oh, so we'd have to take it off somebody else.
Someone else. Yeah.
Okay. No, all good. All right. I see you've got another question there, Councillor O'Neill.
It was very similar to the vein you were just on. So, Mark, I think I just heard that. We would have to take it off somebody else if we wanted to fund them some more within this grant.
You'd have to change the recommendations. Of course, they haven't had the money yet, have they? So they're just, So the recommended amount is the total available for the year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Signalling to the chair. It would be awesome if we are able to allocate some more funds this time. But happy to take advice.
Okay, well, we'd have to reallocate. So, Councillor O'Neill, while Councillor Foon asks her questions, and bearing in mind that I'm going to call on you to move the paper, maybe you can have a little bit of a look at that and a bit of a think and look if we need to have an adjournment so you can get some officer advice. I'm happy to do that, but perhaps reflect while Councillor Foon's asking her question. Cool. Councillor Foon.
Kia ora. Mine was merely a flag, Chair, that I put forward to you, and that is that maybe I could get officer advice on this, that I would like to recommend that the committee recommends to the annual plan committee that we look at increasing the Natural Environment Fund for next annual plan.
You're more than welcome to put that forward, Councillor Foon, and you never know, you might even be here. My pick is it's likely. All right, perhaps if you work up the wording for that, Councillor Foon, and send it to Letitia, I'll just call on Councillor Day to ask her question.
I'll do that now.
Thanks.
Thank you. And this might be a question for Mark. I'm looking at all the applications and quite curious as to what some of these organisations do. And it made me think we didn't have any public participants today. How do our applicants, how do we communicate with them around coming to talk to us? Because there are some where it will be quite interesting to hear what they do.
Yeah, Councillor Day. I mean, it's interesting that we haven't got any public participants. In the acknowledgement email, all the applicants get instructions on how to request public participation. So we normally do. So I don't quite know what's happened there this time round, but it hasn't. But the emails definitely went out to everybody.
Okay, that's helpful to know. Thank you.
I'll try not to get sniffy about that. Now, Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Foon, would you two like us to, we've got some delicious afternoon tea here, and I'm just wondering if you guys would like us to just take a 5 or 10 minute break so you can work up your, is that all right? All right, we'll take, because it's here, and I also bought some licorice all sorts, so because it's our last meeting, we'll just take 10 minutes, we'll come back at 2:10, and if you could work up your various proposals, that would be great. We good to go? Thanks very much, everybody. I'd now like to hand over, unless there's any other questions, hand over to Councillor O'Neill to introduce this paper.
Kia ora. Grants Committee, thanks for taking that wee adjournment just so we could figure out what we were getting up to. So it's my pleasure to move this paper out the final allocation for the end round for the Natural Environment Fund. We have over 170 plus community groups that do work in our natural environment, often completely voluntary, whether that's doing things like ecological weed surveys, replanting, or braving the depths of our south coast to pick up bicycles from the seafloor. So it's really nice when we get recommendations in front of us to just help everybody out a little bit more, whether that be through tools or education and reaching into the natural environment. There are quite a few people on this list, similar to Nicola Young, that I have personal relationships with as well, but hey, that's Wellington. And if I could make a plea to councillors on the committee, it's that things like supporting Friends of Central Park are a fantastic idea and not too far from all of our wards, and they have a marvellous supply of glowworms at night. And I just think it's pretty fantastic once we get to the point of the Grants Committee that we can demonstrate such excellence. I'd also like to acknowledge that ghost diving has recently been recognised for excellence with the runner-up award for heritage and environment at the Wellington Airport Regional Community Awards, and Rebicycle took out the top spot, which is nice to see as well, given we support them through grants too. And just to sort of acknowledge that in this one in particular, I'm really excited to see more grants being allocated towards relationships with our coastal marine environment, because just as we can form buddies and support inland, it is really important to go down to our coast and see the relationships there too. Just chucked up on the screen now, you will see I'm moving an amendment as a part of the substantive to reallocate funds from application number 3, Makara Peak Mountain Bike Supporters, $3,000 to put into the wallets of Ghost Diving New Zealand Incorporated. The reason that I've done this is in working with the weeds environment, weed and ecological surveys is something we have great capacity in-house to deliver, and we are also confident that we will be able to lend them the balance of operational support for Makara Peak supporters in this area as well. I hope it's all right, Chair, that I would like to pass on to Councillor Foon to second, and she can also talk about her amendment that's been incorporated into this.
Thanks so much, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Foon.
Kia ora. I don't think the English is that great in my amendment. If anyone, Councillor Young is very articulate if you want to have a look at it and make any suggested edits. But meanwhile, yes, thank you. I would like to thank Councillor O'Neill for your advocacy in this area and also your physical mahi, as I see you out there doing and with the groups that we have doing what needs to be done. I do just want to shout out to our team in council. I walk around the hills a lot and meet people that are planting or mulching, and they always say how awesome you are at supporting the work that they are doing. And this, of course, enables them to keep doing it because you are so good at getting materials to them. And I guess the only thing I would say is that, yes, the reason for this amendment is after 3 years on grants, this is the lowest amount of the fund, and it's an area where we do need to do a lot of work. And I think that by boosting the fund, it will show the 170 volunteer community groups that we are backing their work as well. So I do urge you to support this. if it gets through next year, if we all get through next year, at least there'll be a record from us that this is what we think should happen. So yeah, just a big thanks to all the community groups and to our officers for the work that they do supporting them, and please support this amendment. Kia ora.
Thanks, Councillors O'Neill and Fu. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Young.
So, well before my time, there was a song called I Danced with a Man Who Danced with a Woman Who Danced with the Prince of Wales, and I feel that this amendment is recommend that the next grant committee recommend to the next annual plan to seek officers' advice. I mean, I think it's like a nice signal, but it's, you know, but I mean, it's hard to vote against it, but it's like, and I also feel uncomfortable about leaving suggestions for future councillors, but I also get the point that they probably don't realise that we need more money in this fund, but at the same time, you know, I don't want the rates to go up, so, you know, I have lots of problems.
Thank you, Councillor Young, I think. Councillor O'Neill, did you want to write a reply?
Just very briefly to say, it's not often super fashionable to be supporting things like weeds and predator-free and stuff like that. You don't often get a beautiful photo of Helen Clark holding a kiwi and cutting a ribbon. But it's really hard work that a lot of our community groups do. You literally get covered in head to toe with mud and worms and snails and stuff like that. But yeah, I'd like to just thank Councillor Fohn for adding in there a recommendation to increase support for the natural environment. Because as we know in Wellington, just last week we were all slipping apart and there was plenty of erosion, and maybe if we fund our natural environment efforts a bit more, we can do things like our horticultural team was saying to me at the boat hands, what if we spent more money on funding specific trees that stopped slips throughout our city, and we had a big campaign to plant these certain kinds of trees, and then we would have less erosion and less slips in our city. And I think that's a fantastic idea. But hopefully we can see the opportunity here, and hopefully the incoming council does too.
Thanks so much, everybody. All right, I'll ask you now to vote. Does anyone want to take anything separately? No.
I think we have to take ghost diving separately for Councillor Dace.
We're not. She's left the room.
Oh.
Yep. So, all right. All those in favour, press 1 or use your green tick. Lovely, that's carried. Thanks, everybody. Now, our final paper is the very controversial actions tracking. I suspect it doesn't need an introduction given we've approved the minutes and there's nothing else in here, but if you would like to say anything, you're very welcome. I will move that the actions tracking is accepted. And I have a seconder in Councillor Matthews. I might just give Councillor Day a moment to pop back in. I've texted her, which is what she asked for. But let's carry on anyway. All those in favour, please press 1 or vote online. Thanks, everybody. That's carried. Now, I did just want to say a couple of final closing remarks, given that it is the last Grants Committee meeting, and it really is just really a lot of thanks to the officers who have supported the Grants Committee in the last 3 years. We've been very, very well supported. We've had officers that have acted with real integrity and hard work and have operated on the basis of no surprises and making sure that we have all the relevant information. And it's always dangerous to single people out, but I did just want to single out Jenny Rains and Mark Farrer for your dedication to this work, and particularly your dedication to the people that receive these grants, because I know that what we see at the table is only a tiny fraction of the work that goes into the relationships that you put in with these people and the work that they do. So actually on behalf of Wellington, because our grant recipients change the way Wellington feels and looks and is as a city, thank you so much for the work that you do and all your teams, because yeah, I feel incredibly well supported in this role because of the work of you and your teams. And I did just also want to pass on thanks to the DEM services staff, so Sean and Letitia, and we've had very good DEM services staff at this committee, and they have really acted with integrity and also have put into a lot of work behind the scenes and making sure that this committee runs really smoothly. So I wanted to acknowledge you all as well, and thank you very much.
And I would like to briefly acknowledge Madam Chair for the great leadership that you have shown this committee over the triennium. It's been a very enjoyable and efficient process to be part of, so thank you too, Fleur.
Thank you very much. It is the loveliest committee because you just kind of give out money all the time, so it's a pretty easy one and nice one. And thanks, Kim, for your work as the ELT representative as well. All right, well, I'll ask you all to stand for our closing karakia. Unu hia, ki te uru tapu nui, kia wātia, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua, e te ara taka tū, ko ia rā I rongo, whakaria aki ki runga, kia wātia, ai rā ko wātia.